welcome to another edition of West Bloomfield 911. I'm Officer Rick, and on behalf of the men and women of the West Bloomfield Police Department, welcome to another exciting show. We have two guests today, two people I had the pleasure of meeting before when I was in their class, and they will tell you what that class was in a minute. And they are Fred Sandler, he's the Supervisory Special Agent from the FBI, and Christine Taylor, Special Agent from the FBI. I want to welcome you both to the show.
Good morning.
It's good to have you here.
Morning.
Good to see you both again.
Thank you.
Now, don't run away. Before we start talking, we're going to highlight one of our officers, so stay with us. And folks, if you look on the screen, you are going to see the smiling face of Police Cadet Trevor Aaron. Trevor's assigned to the cadet rank of cadets, so he works for administration, and he's been with us for 2 years. And he is not only a man of service here in West Bloomfield, getting his foot in the door. That's kind of the bottom rung when you want to be a police officer, and it's a great way to learn your way around, learn the reports, learn whether this is a job you want to do. And Trevor is a great asset to us. But he's also a reserve deputy for the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. So we see that he's really interested, and we hope one day you'll get picked up by us or someone else. You'll be an asset wherever you go, Trevor. So he served us for 2 years, and during that time, I got to learn a little bit about him. When I asked him what his favorite food was, he said it's Mexican. I enjoy that as well, so you and I are going to have to go out to eat one day, Trevor. And his favorite book is called Into the Wild by John Krakauer, a 1996 biography of Christopher McCandless. Now, I've never read that, but I did look it up after he told me about it, and it does sound very interesting. His favorite movie, The Departed, a 2006 crime thriller starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, and a slew of other famous personnel. And his favorite music, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. You know, and I kind of like their music as well. I particularly like Tom Petty when he's with the Traveling Wilburys. I don't know if you do, Trevor. His accomplishments and hobbies, he loves to fish, camp, hunt, and just being in the out of doors. And when I asked him about a favorite quote, he said, "Life is like a grindstone. Whether it wears you down or polishes you up depends on what you are made of." And I'm not sure if Trevor knows, but this is actually a quote by Josh Billings, who was a 19th century American humorist, but his actual name was Henry Wheeler Shaw, and he lived in the 1800s from 1818 to 1885. That's a great quote, though. I do like that, Trevor. Trevor, keep up the great work as a cadet, and I will see you back at the barn. Take care, and I hope you have a long and happy and illustrious career here in West Bloomfield. Folks, we're going to turn the corner spotlight off, and today we're going to look at a dumb criminal. I know that those of us in law enforcement love these guys. They make it easy for us to catch them, so we don't have to work as hard. And this one was titled, "No Need to Hide Evidence." Now, I don't make these up. This is out of a national magazine. A Chicago man was stopped at a red light, and next to him was a police cruiser. The man leaned over and asked if he was wanted by the police. I don't know if that's a very good question when you live a dubious life. The cops got out of their cruiser to chat with him, and that's when they smelled the sweet aroma of marijuana wafting from his car. So I don't know if it was the marijuana that dumped him down or that's just the way he was. But that's also when they noticed the butt of a handgun tucked into the driver's seat. Boy, things didn't get better for this guy, did they? Further investigation revealed an illegal loaded assault rifle, unregistered weapons, and ammunition. So the question was answered, yes, you are wanted. So, you know what, we want to thank him, and let's hope he stays in Chicago because we have enough of our own, and thanks for making our life easy there, buddy. So, listen, folks, we'll be right back with our two very interesting guests from the FBI. Please don't go away.
You're watching West Bloomfield 911 on Civic Center TV, a service of the Greater West Bloomfield Cable Communications Commission. For more information or to watch episodes on demand, visit civiccentertv.com/WB911. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
The West Bloomfield Police Foundation raises money to help those who protect and serve the community. Whether it's emotional or financial support, the foundation provides a helping hand to officers, their families, and those in the community. For more information on the West Bloomfield Police Foundation, contact Kurt Lawson at 248-975-8900 or visit wbpolicefoundation.org.
And we are back. Welcome again to West Bloomfield 911. We are very pleased to have with us Fred Sandler, Supervisory Special Agent with the FBI, and Christine Taylor, Special Agent with the FBI. Now, I have a quick question for both of you. In the federal agencies, it's always special agent. Do you have like mediocre agents, or are all agents special?
Yeah, they're all very special.
They're all very special.
Wonderful personalities.
Well, you know what? I was very pleased to meet you guys. It's got to be guys being generic.
That's okay.
A couple years ago when I took your crisis negotiator class. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because I got to tell you, that was a wonderful program. I had taken another one which was great also, but you guys put on a great program. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We love to do them. That's one of the highlights of what we do every year. We do at least two, usually a year. Sometimes one on the west side of Michigan, and then sometimes in Troy.
That's right.
That's where that one was.
Yeah, in Troy. And we just love doing them. It's a lot of fun for us, and we love to do it with all the different locals, state, and other federal agencies that come.
Well, now, how long have you been a crisis negotiator, Fred?
So I've been a crisis negotiator since the 1990s, when I was in the federal prison system as a psychologist. And then when I came into the FBI, it just kept going. The team leader at the time roped me in, and I love doing it.
Yeah.
Chris?
I came into the program in 2010.
And when did you join the FBI?
1997.
Okay. Did you start, I noticed a lot of the agents I've spoken to over the years actually started in law enforcement in a local agency. Did you, or did you both go right into, well, I know you started out in the prison system.
Right,
Fred.
federal prison system.
Christine, did you start out, excuse that, as I told you, my daughter's
okay.
name is Kristen. Did you start out as a local police officer initially?
No, I have no law enforcement background. Mine is in finance.
Oh, okay. Very good, very good. Now, Fred, what made you leave the prisons to go into the FBI?
You know what, I loved being a psychologist in the Bureau of Prisons. I think we just wanted more mobility, you know, and wanted to try a new experience. So I decided, you know, why not? Maybe I'll wear both hats. I could use my psychologist hat, which I do as an employee assistance person,
Right.
you know, doing the crisis negotiation and a variety of other stuff like critical incident work. So I figured, yeah, I'll get a variety of things, and I love being an investigator.
Right.
So that's why I came in.
Now, did that prison system, was that the federal prison system?
Yes, I worked at the Federal Correctional Institution in Miami, Florida. We had, you know, it's all public information. We had guys like Noriega, and
Right.
fun people who will talk to psychologists.
Right.
They don't have a lot to do in 30, 40-year sentences, so it made for a fun job. But yeah, it was at the federal level.
I'll bet. Now, those folks had to be interesting to talk to.
Oh, it was.
I mean, it's a whole different world for them.
It was fascinating. I mean, you know, they don't like to talk to the average person, so they wouldn't talk to me if I didn't work there. But yeah, it was fascinating, the stories you'd hear.
Oh, I'll bet.
And if they were working on their case and, you know, working on an appeal, they probably wouldn't tell that much about what they were doing.
Right.
But if they were serving their time and they had accepted it, they told fascinating stories.
bet.
Yeah,
bet.
it was fun.
Now, how does it feel to be up here where it's cold?
I don't mind.
Especially after
yeah.
this last winter.
Well, this was a cold winter, so I would mind that again, but I don't mind. You know, I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we were used to 4 seasons.
Right.
Maybe not quite this cold, but my kids and wife have gotten used to it. We love it here.
Good, good. Well, we're glad you're here. How about you, Christine?
Well, I'm originally from this area. I worked for a local bank prior to coming into the FBI, and I just had my sights on working for the federal government, and so once I applied, they accepted, and my first assignment was Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I landed there for 9 years, and ultimately decided that my family and I would like to come home, and we had the opportunity, and here we are.
Good, good. Now, as I was telling you off camera, I was just in D.C. I'd been there before, but I was there this time for Law Enforcement Week, and that is a fun town. I don't know if I'd want to live there, but it's certainly a fun town to visit. I mean, and I believe every American should go to Washington, D.C. at least once, you know.
I agree.
When you see all the stuff there, it does make you proud to be an American, no doubt about it, if
Such
you
a
weren't
great city.
already.
Yeah.
You know? Well, let's talk a little bit about crisis negotiation, hostage negotiation. What term do you prefer to use? And Well, let's go to the psychologist. What term does the FBI use? Hostage negotiation or crisis negotiation?
We always used to be, in the 90s, the term hostage negotiators was the most common. So they would call them HNT teams, hostage negotiation teams. But probably toward the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, they went with crisis negotiation only because a lot of the incidents we respond to, most of the incidents we respond to, are not hostage situations. They're necessarily barricade or domestic situations, but they're crisis situations either way. So that's how they kind of evolved that way.
Yeah. Well, now, let me ask you, Christine, how does the FBI get involved if something starts out on the local level?
Well, being that I work in the Oakland County office of the FBI, if we learn that something is taking place locally, typically we'll reach out to the on-scene command and offer our assistance. We're available to help. Many of us have been trained the same way. And if our help is requested, we'll be there in any capacity. Our team will come out, bring equipment, bring resources. And if it is determined that the crime that has taken place or is taking place then rises to a federal level, then we may work more as a team, and eventually the FBI may take over on that situation. But we always offer our assistance, and purely it's assistance.
Right, and I got to tell you, I mean, I know that's true from experience as well. I had taken your class prior to our officer, Sergeant Patrick O'Rourke, being killed.
Yes.
And of course, you guys know that was like a 20-hour standoff.
Yes.
And I know when I came in that day, I got a call from someone we all know, Mike Connolly.
Oh, yeah.
And the same thing, he just said, look, anything you guys need, let me know.
Yeah.
And of course, I passed that on to the on-scene commander. And in the class, what I thought was rather interesting is one of you had said during the course of the training, look, even if you just need us there to make coffee,
Right.
Absolutely.
that's what we will do.
You bet.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
you know, I thought that was great.
Yes.
That because let's face it, as a smaller agency, we have limited assets. You guys have, being a federal agency, have more assets, and I think we're all there to help each other.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Many of these situations are long in duration, and people are getting tired and worn down.
Right.
And really, there isn't anything we can't do to assist. Just to be on scene, to observe, to bring coffee, to jump in when someone is wearing down and resources are low. Because again, many of us are trained in the same methodologies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the tragedy that you mentioned with Patrick O'Rourke that day, that's a good example of all just coming together as a
Right.
team. I mean,
Yes.
some of us were called to talk to some of the family members
Right.
of, we'll call him the bad guy that day, and then others were helping Oakland County who were looking into negotiations, et cetera.
Right.
So it's just one big team.
Right. Well, now let me ask you, Fred, as someone who's been in it longer than I have, when you go to a scene,
Yeah.
and a lot of times, it would seem to me that once we start talking to the person that we need to talk down or come out, sometimes we can kind of get into a rut. And is part of that working a team when having another agent or officer there can say, look, you might want to try looking at it from this point?
Very much so. We have a team concept. We may have a primary negotiator who's on the line talking, if it's a throw phone or even if it's a bullhorn, but we have other members who are helping to pass notes. Assuming that the subject isn't standing in front of you, then we probably wouldn't do that unless we take a negotiation break. But everybody's pitching in to help that primary negotiator. We have what they call a secondary negotiator, a coach. We have usually situation boards. These are recorders putting up and helping that primary negotiator and putting on their different ideas, whether they're themes or things maybe to say or concerns about the situation itself on those boards. So it really pitches in and helps everybody out.
Christine, when you're working a scene like that, what do you take a look also at the officers there, even maybe if it's just yourself, like as you said, fatigue might be setting in, or there's maybe too much emotion being felt by an officer involved. Do we look at that when we're out there as well?
We as a team would always take everything into consideration, and the team leader or the on-scene command, and in our team, Fred is in charge. We would take a look at all the dynamics taking place, and then a decision would be made as to who is best suited at that time to try to engage the barricaded gunman or whoever's on the other side. And until that situation is exhausted or that individual is no longer to successfully make contact, we're going to run that out.
Right.
At some point, there may have to be a change, but we just kind of ride it out until something changes.
And really, the ultimate goal isn't who gets the credit. The ultimate goal is to diffuse that situation,
Right.
so nobody gets hurt, or if someone already has, nobody else gets hurt.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, let's say, for instance, something happens, and can we kind of go, obviously we don't want to give away any trade secrets or anything, but what would be, can you kind of run through a process of what we might do when something first starts? Is it the local police usually the first on the scene?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, even in the exercises we do, we integrate with the locals, with other federal organizations, and usually the locals are your first responders. I mean, if there's something, maybe a tragedy at a mall, someone takes hostages, or kind of like what recently happened over in Africa, the first ones to go in are going to be the local police.
Right.
And if they see a nexus to terrorism or something that might be considered a federal offense, they're going to start calling in Homeland Security and FBI and
Right.
a variety of other organizations.
Right.
So, but they're probably going to be spending the first half hour, and onward into the future and become part of a bigger team,
Sure.
especially negotiation-wise with us.
Sure.
But yeah, they're always the first responders.
Well, now, can we talk a little, I don't know if we can talk about that, what's going on in Nigeria. I'm not sure how much the FBI is involved or what you can say about that. But can we talk a little bit about that? Is that, I know that we have sent now, someone told me recently now we have sent some boots on the ground
Yes.
over there. Is the FBI have an active role in that at all? Is it mostly as a consultation to the locals?
Well, it's definitely consultation. I mean, when we're asked to come to another country, and we have extraterritorial squads that go, and it's usually not our negotiation team. It's usually investigators on these extraterritorial squads. Some come from Washington Field, some come from our New York field office, some come from LA, et cetera. It's usually supportive, it's usually evidence gathering, and to work with the locals there
Right.
to get the best approach to try to figure out what happened here.
Right.
And that's pretty much what's,
Right.
that was a horrible, massive
Oh
scale
my gosh,
tragedy.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's hope something like that never happens here.
Well, we all hope not, but we try to prepare for it just in case.
Right, right. Well, now, Christine, as a crisis negotiator, that's not your sole job in the FBI.
No, it's not.
And you wear many hats.
Yes.
How do you prepare, or if you are called to a scene, because you do other things, what is the kind of the protocol for you to follow? How do they get you to come out somewhere?
Well, as you know, in law enforcement, we're always on call. So if the call comes in and I'm working on one of my investigations or my cases, we have a team of 5 or 6 at this time, agents, and we will all get the call. Whoever's available, most of us generally are, will respond immediately. But you just put everything else aside, and we've got our to-go cases and bags and our equipment all in one location. We get going.
Very good. Now, is that, when you're supervisor, is that kind of the same thing as well?
Well, it's similar, but we have, and Chris has got a lot of other, maybe another collateral duty she hasn't talked about that may kind of obligate her at times. The same thing as a supervisor. If I'm obligated, then I may be calling the other team members and saying, I'm not going to be able to make it because I have other duties, whether
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
the supervision of a terrorism squad or, some of my psychology collateral duties that I do outside of hostage negotiation. So we all kind of pitch in and try to replace each other if we can't make it.
Right. Now, I know, as Christine was looking at your biography, that you have an undergraduate degree in Spanish. Now, I would assume that that comes in very handy for the FBI, since we have so many people in our country that Spanish is either a secondary language or a primary language.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have many language programs within the FBI, but Spanish is an invaluable tool to have.
Right, right. Now, how long have you been speaking Spanish?
Well, I have spoken better earlier in my life. I've had my degree for about 25 years now, so
Okay, very
I
good.
had some opportunity to live in Spain for a while.
Did you really?
Yeah, so I would say that was the time when my Spanish was most fluent.
Yeah, my oldest daughter got a chance to go there, and she absolutely loved it.
It is
In
wonderful.
fact, she just said the other day, I have a yearning to go back to Spain. So who knows? Maybe she'll decide she wants to stay there. I don't know. Now, do you speak a second language yourself,
No, I
Fred?
used to I speak French, but it used to be a lot better. Now it's more, good French in the past, now just bad French. So, you know, but I do speak a little French. I can understand it better than I can speak it now.
Okay. I speak a second language too. It's obscenity. And so I usually don't get called for that too often, but that's the only other language I know. Now, you both work out of the Detroit field office. And do they take you out of Detroit though once in a while? Because obviously a hot spot might be another community, and as you say, you all wear multiple hats. So as you said, you might tell people here, well, I can't make it today, or Christine may not be able to make it, she's tied up on something. How often do you get called out of the Detroit area?
You know, it's not uncommon. Now a lot of it's voluntary, you know. Let's say we have the temporary duty assignments, what they call TDYs, which have maybe nothing to do with hostage negotiation, although they do have those too overseas where we help out in other countries. Right. But it can happen. You know, most of it's voluntary. Maybe Christine has to go and, you know, get called back to DC for a 90-day TDY to help on some kind of financial crime investigation. So all of us do tend to do that, and all of us have had to respond to other things like that in our careers.
Sure.
I have another collateral duty. I'm on the evidence response team for the Detroit division, and many times, maybe not out of state, but many times other localities within the state, whether it be up north or on the west side of the state, we may be called to assist local law enforcement or to work on one of our own cases.
Collecting evidence?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, now let me ask you, if you get called, and again, it may not just be here in Detroit, but you have other things that you need to do. What is going to be your primary function at first will be to assist the local agency, and then we'll see how big that grows and whether it's going to be a federal crime or not. Can you talk about some cases that are done and over with now that you know that we had some great success working together, or even success in the FBI? I know I told you off camera, I got to see some of the information when I was at the Michigan Association of Hostage Negotiators, the one down in Alabama.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, I was very impressed with the work that everybody, you know, did down there, including, you know, the FBI, your hostage, as a hostage rescue team, is that what you call it?
Oh yeah, HRT.
That was just, and I used to be on our SRT here, but you guys, that was just phenomenal. And the crisis negotiators down there just did a remarkable job.
Well, and that is a perfect example of how federal and local law enforcement work together. And when you come onto a scene, you don't want to interrupt what is taking place at that time. So if the local law enforcement first responders are actively engaging and having dialogue with the person on the other side, we don't want to come in and interrupt that. We come in and support that.
Right.
And that's a perfect example of what took place when all the teams came together for a wonderful resolution, brought that child home.
Sure, yeah, and none of the entry team members got hurt either when they went in there, which is that's a good day.
Yeah,
right.
You know,
one of the main goals of doing crisis negotiations, save lives.
Right. Now, and unfortunately, the bad guy decided he wasn't going to go without a fight, and he was the one that ended up getting hurt. But better him than us, you know.
Right.
So, can you touch on a couple of the other cases that you found, maybe that you've worked on over the years that were fascinating?
You know, I look at it more globally, you know, because if I just look overall at the FBI and some of our crisis responses from the negotiation standpoint, probably the most common that people think of are things like Waco, the Freeman standoff a number of years ago, because you see us responding, and like Christine said, you have other negotiators there, whether it's the locals first, or maybe ATF, like you look at Waco, ATF was there, and a variety of other federal organizations, and we just kind of integrate in, and we rotate in and out as negotiators, and it's all one big team. So I just think of all those big standoffs that the public probably thinks about, like you said, things that have already been adjudicated or finished up in the that. So, but all of us have had to respond to littler, I won't call little, they're all important, but littler things that, you know.
Stuff that doesn't maybe
but people probably think of the things like Waco or the Freeman standoff, or like you mentioned, the one in Alabama last year.
Well, let me ask you, Fred, as a psychologist, what is the motivation, or maybe generally speaking, because everybody's different, but what do you see as a psychologist as the motivation for most of these types of standoffs? Is it that their life is crumbling beneath them?
You know, people go into crisis for so many different reasons, and you know, you had taken the course, and you know that sometimes it's a breakup, you know, some type of a loss that somebody has. Maybe they go into a financial crisis. And there's all these different stressors that people have, you know, and they lost a job, they had an argument with somebody at work, and, you know, something went south. And, you know, years ago, you know, the Postal Service suffered a lot of these, you know, with the people, you know, postal employees going into postal offices and firing weapons. And a lot of it, they did research on that and found, well, it was going on because of the horrible, stressful environment there. Now, these guys are making poor choices when they go into crisis and do something that the average person isn't going to do. But there's a lot of different precipitating factors, these stressors.
Now, let me ask you, as a psychologist, when you go to a scene, is your job mostly as a psychologist to try to observe the behavior of the person on the other side through what the negotiator is experiencing and to help them, or do you actually do some of the negotiating yourself?
Well, you know, I'm trained to do both, but we're all one big team. So whether it's me or Christine, or you mentioned Mike Conley earlier, or any other team member here in Detroit FBI, we're all observing, we're all kind of doing an ongoing assessment of what's going on in this situation, in that barricade situation, or maybe it is a hostage standoff. Now, me as a psychologist, I may offer some additional input, you know, on the person's character, maybe they have some type of a mental health diagnosis, but overall, everybody's kind of thinking like that. And we're all brainstorming on our negotiation breaks and trying to figure out what's going on here. And we all have to be able to sit in that seat as a negotiator at times. So, but we're all trying to assess the situation too.
And Fred is extremely helpful when it comes to situations where we're learning that the barricaded individual perhaps is taking medication or is taking some type of a controlled substance. And we need to understand what type of behaviors we can expect when someone's under the influence, or do they need more medication? Will that help us reason with them a little better? And that's where Fred is instrumental.
Well, let's talk about some of the training that you guys offer. And I went to your basic crisis negotiator class. What are some of the other training that you offer local police along this vein?
Yeah, did you want to comment on that, Chris? Or?
Well, I think one thing that is the most exciting for us during our basic course is our last day of our course, where we take everything that we have instructed and worked with the groups over the last 4 days, and we apply it in as practical real-life scenarios as we can. And we work as teams, 4 teams throughout the day, where we have as real-life situations as we can, and we watch them process through everything that we have talked about, whether it be behavioral analysis, abnormal psych, is a suicide situation, do we have a hostage situation or a barricaded individual? It's very exciting. So we also offer some advanced courses, which we don't teach as often, but that's typically for the law enforcement personnel that have already been through our basic course.
And one of the core, kind of to add on to what Christine is saying, is, you know, active listening skills, just trying to build rapport with somebody who's on the other side. And that's really the core of that basic course. Because, you know, if you forget everything else and all these special topics that we talk about, whether it's suicide intervention, which of course is an important topic, or some of the other crisis stuff we talk about, if they can just build rapport, that's probably the core of any advanced course and any basic course, because we always want that to be something that they remember when they're going to go ahead and do this live.
Right, because it's not about the negotiator, it's about the person they're talking to.
That's right.
Building that rapport to make, to alleviate or reduce that crisis.
Right. Now, are your classes offered to people outside law enforcement as well?
Yes.
I can't remember if there were others outside of the law enforcement field that were in the
We do, but you might get like someone who we might call an affiliate. You know, like we've had people from local universities in their security department. So they're not law enforcement, but you're working with them. You know, we're working with them at times. I think we've had, I mean, of course we have correctional staff that have been there working in local facilities. Do you remember anything else? That's pretty much.
I remember if some chaplains were in your class or not. I couldn't remember.
You know what? We have had chaplains, Usually they're law enforcement chaplains.
Yes.
In some capacity.
Yes.
But yeah, that's probably the majority is, meaning the non-law enforcement is from a university or from some kind of an affiliate, to include chaplains.
Right, absolutely. Well, now, we only have a few minutes left, and so we're going to go ladies first. Christine, is there something you would like to let the public know about the FBI or about that maybe services that you offer, or a number that you'd like to give out for folks if they need to contact you?
Sure. Well, we here at the FBI, we not only are located in most communities throughout the state of Michigan. I'm located in Troy. We have offices in just about every county. We reach every county. We work very closely with our local partners. Our main office number, should you have any questions, is 313-965-2323. We also have a community outreach department. We spend a lot of time speaking in local schools. We do career days. We love to get out in the community and meet everyone. And we're here if there's any questions, any information you'd like to provide, we certainly will direct that information to the proper resource.
Very good. How about you, Fred?
Maybe the only thing I would add to what Chris just said is that we love to support, you know, the locals, to the other federal organizations, state organizations, of course, if something does come up in a crisis. So 313-965-2323, we can support not only as a crisis negotiation team, but like a lot of times the evidence response team will support local matters if they're asked.
Right.
And we've done things under the umbrella of employee assistance program to support other law enforcement partners.
Right.
Whether it's helping in a critical incident matter or something else. So we're there.
Excellent. Now, I do have one quick question before we go. Have you ever do you ever run into a situation, and it kind of goes back to, we had someone that you know very well, Bob Beckman, on our show earlier, and we were talking about public corruption. Have you had to utilize your skills as a crisis negotiator for people who are in the public field or law enforcement personnel who have gone to the dark side?
Well, I'll say it this way, you know, and this is the most unfortunate thing when a case, you know, develops on, say, you know, a local police department or one of our partners, and you know there is corruption. Right. And we've always, as a negotiation team, we respond to a lot of arrests anyway. We're usually there with SWAT when they do arrests, but especially an arrest involving someone who's a gun toter. And it wasn't that long ago, a number of years ago, when unfortunately Detroit Police Department I think we had arrested 21 officers a few years back. Yes, and we had a presence, not only as probably every FBI agent that day was helping out with those arrests,
sure.
But our crisis negotiation team was there too, just in case something went bad.
Right, right.
But like I said, our negotiation team will go to most arrests, just in case it's standby, in case something goes bad. Maybe it's an arrest at a house, but they just want to make sure.
Right. Now, probably one of the most high-profile cases, and it wasn't here in Detroit, but obviously when O.J. Simpson was arrested, of course he ended up being found not guilty, but that was very high-profile, and there was a lot of video with him being followed in the Bronco and what have you.
Right.
Was the FBI involved in that at all, or was that strictly with LA? I don't know if it was LA Sheriff or LAPD.
I don't know if Chris knows, or I don't know offhand, but my hunch is we would have offered support. The LA field office would have probably offered support to say, do you need some help in this situation, because it was developing into a larger scale potential problem.
Right.
Just to offer support.
Right. Well, I got to tell you, I've worked with you guys over the years. I mean, the FBI. Even when I was a railroad cop, we used to do a lot of work with you. Obviously, being national commerce, and you know, my experience has always been wonderful with you. Your classes have been great that I've attended. You guys have been a great asset, and I appreciate all that you guys do. And I know when Tappers got hit a few years ago, you guys brought out your emergency response team or hostage team as well when we were looking for those guys. So I thank you for what you guys do, and appreciate your assistance to us, certainly.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, we would like to recognize the fallen officer. I know it's something near and dear to all of us. So folks, if you would, please look on the screen and remember in your thoughts and in your prayers, Police Officer Patrick Hill of the Detroit Police Department, who was killed in the line of duty on October 19th, 2013. Actually, he died that day, but he had succumbed to an accidental gunshot wound sustained 6 months earlier following a high-speed pursuit of a murder suspect. The vehicle they were pursuing was boxed in, and another police car police car at Linwood and Hooker Street in Detroit, and the murder suspect immediately opened fire on the officers from inside his vehicle, wounding one officer. Other officers on the scene returned fire, killing the subject, and it's believed that shrapnel from a shotgun pellet fired by one of the officers on the scene, friendly fire, unfortunately struck Officer Hill in the head, and he died 6 months later. Another person in the vehicle attempted to flee on foot, but he was also arrested. Officer Hill was transported to a local hospital in critical condition, and he died 6 months later on October 19th, 2013. He had served with DPD for 13 years. He is survived by his wife and 4 children. So if you would, please remember this great American hero, Police Officer Patrick Hill of the Detroit Police Department. Remember him, his family, his colleagues in the Detroit Police Department in your thoughts and in your prayers. And remember all law enforcement, whether it would be on the local level or the federal level, as we serve and protect all of you and hope that we go home every night to our families. Again, I'm Officer Rick, and I want to thank our guest, Christine Taylor, Special Agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Fred Sandler, Supervisory Special Agent with the FBI. I thank you both for coming.
Thanks for
and
having
thank
us.
for all that you've
Thank
done.
you.
Folks, I want to thank you for watching West Bloomfield 911. Remember, you can catch us on the telly, and if you don't, you can always go to civiccentertv.com, catch us on the internet, on demand, at your convenience. And remember, take care of each other. Life is short and tomorrow is promised to no one. On behalf of Chief Mike Patton, the men and women of the West Bloomfield Police Department, thank you for watching. I'm Officer Rick, and I'll see you again on West Bloomfield 911.